Have you ever stopped and just looked around and felt like, wow, everything is an organization now? From your job to your hobbies, from little local groups to massive global movements, this one structure seems to be absolutely everywhere. Today, we're going to dig into why that is.
No, really, think about it. This is a huge shift in how we do things. What used to be, just an informal get-together or a simple community project now has a mission statement, a board of directors, and a bunch of performance metrics. Let's look at a couple of examples.
Take your local school. It's not just a place where kids learn anymore. It's now an educational organization. It has performance targets, formal rules, and all this official oversight, what the experts call governance.
Or how about that neighborhood group that wanted to clean up the local park? 20 years ago, that might have just been a few volunteers getting together on a Saturday. Today, it's probably a registered nonprofit, a professional organization focused on advocacy.
And then, of course, you've got the most obvious example, the giant multinational corporation. The point is, this trend is happening at every single level of society, from super local stuff to things that span the entire globe.
And the scale of this change is just staggering. One researcher, Lester Salmon, actually calls it a global associational revolution. He says this shift is as big a deal for us today as the creation of countries was hundreds of years ago. So yeah, this is not just some minor trend, it is a fundamental rewiring of our society.
So why is this happening? Well, there's a simple, common sense explanation that you've probably already thought of. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, that obvious explanation might not be the whole story.
This is what's known as the functionalist argument. The logic goes like this. Our world is just way more complicated now, right? We have more people, more global trade, more complex problems like climate change. So naturally, we need more organizations to manage all of that. They're just the rational, efficient tools we invented to create order out of chaos. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It does make perfect sense until you actually look at the data. And this is where that common sense theory really starts to fall apart. Because the numbers, well, they tell a very different and way more fascinating story.
Okay, let's start with California. Between 1960 and 2001, the population grew. Makes sense. The economy, the gross state product, it grew too. Totally expected. But then, look at the growth in the number of corporations. It absolutely dwarfs everything else. It's not even close.
To put a number on it, the number of registered corporations in California skyrocketed by over 400%. The speed at which we're creating organizations is completely outpacing the growth of the complexity they're supposed to be managing.
And this isn't just a California thing or even an American thing. Take a look at Poland. Between 1991 and 2002, as it was shifting its economy, the number of domestic companies exploded by over 2,500%. It's the same pattern, just on an even crazier scale. Economic growth alone just can't explain this.
And the pattern holds up even when we zoom all the way out to the global level. And it's not just for-profit companies either. The number of international non-governmental organizations, or INGOs, has just exploded since World War II, growing way, way faster than the world's population.
So the data is pretty clear on this. We are building organizations far faster than complexity seems to demand. So if it's not just a simple, functional response to a complicated world, what is really going on?
Well, a new theory suggests the answer isn't about tools, it's about culture. Think of globalization less as a source of problems and more as a force that's creating a global culture. A culture that provides a script for how to get things done. And in our modern script, the starring role is the organization.
This idea completely reframes globalization. It's not just about connecting economies. It's about spreading shared ideas and norms across the planet. This process creates a kind of universal blueprint for what a legitimate, serious, and effective group is supposed to look like. And right now, that blueprint is the formal organization. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to follow the script.
So what's driving this cultural script? It really comes down to three main forces. First, we have a global horizon. We think about problems like the environment on a world scale now. Second, we have universal standards. We trust in science and expertise to give us the right way to do things. And third, and this one is a biggie, we have a culture of what's called actorhood. This is the powerful belief that any individual or group can and should organize to solve problems.
Now, what's so fascinating is that this cultural shift doesn't just create more organizations, it's also changing their very DNA.
The model that's spreading like wildfire isn't that old-school top-down bureaucracy your grandparents might have worked in. It's something very different. On the left, you've got that classic bureaucracy. It's a rigid pyramid, all about command and control. People were basically seen as cogs in a machine. But the modern organization on the right is modeled as a flexible network. It's all about experimenting and learning, and its people are seen as empowered actors who use their own judgment. It's a fundamental shift from a rigid machine to a dynamic, living system.
And this brings us back to that core concept, actorhood. This is really the beating heart of the modern organization. The idea is that the organization itself is an independent actor with the right to make its own moves, not just a tool for an owner or the government. And crucially, the people inside the organization are also seen as empowered actors, capable of their own initiative and innovation. This is the defining feature that's spreading across the globe.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that structuring yourself as an organization has become the universal language we all use to signal that we're legitimate, that we're rational, and that we can get things done. It's not just a tool anymore. It's basically the price of admission to be a player on the world stage. It is just wild how powerful a cultural script can be. It has completely reshaped our world in only a few decades. Which leaves us with a final, pretty big question to think about. If the formal, empowered organization is the script for today, what's the script of tomorrow going to look like?